Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. The New York State COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program, called the program, was created by New York State to provide flexible grant assistance to small businesses, micro businesses, and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations who have experienced economic hardship during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Queen's Chamber of Commerce is one of the sponsors of this program, and that is why we are here today. My name is Jacqueline Donado. I am the Strategic Program Manager of the Queen's Chamber of Commerce, an organization of 110 years that we advocate, we educate, and we also work with business owners all over the Borough of Queens. Today, we will learn more about the program offered by the New York State. This is a very good program that is giving grants and loans to small businesses, grants to small businesses that need to apply in the special website that we're going to share the information with you. We're going to share all the details, including the PowerPoint presentation. And today's presentation is offered by the New York State, also by the Queen's Chamber of Commerce. And the webinar is presented by Tasneem Sultana. She is a Queen's Chamber Outreach Business Specialist, and she will cover a series of all the assistance about the grants and all the information that you need to know in order to apply it and to succeed in this grant application. We will be sharing the PowerPoint presentation at the end of the presentation. We will upload the video into the Queen's Chamber of Commerce YouTube channel. And at this moment, we are broadcasting on Facebook Live. Please write all your questions in the chat. Let's have a great event. Once again, thank you for being here. I look forward to work with all of you. And now is the moment to welcome our friend and colleague, Tasneem Sultana.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. So I'm Tasneem, and I will be sharing some information about the New York State COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program, as Jacqueline mentioned. So this is this grant is being provided by the New York State government, but it will be administered by this platform called Lendistry. So this is like a website where you will be filling out your application and submitting all the required documentation. So without further ado, I'm just gonna move on to the grant program. So a little intro, as Jackie mentioned, this grant is for small businesses, micro businesses, and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations. And your business has to be in New York State and have to have experienced some economic struggle due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So everything that we will be covering today in this webinar can be found in the website www.newyorksmallbusinessrecovery.com. So you can find all the information, how to fill out the application, this package of slides, everything. So so we're going to talk about the grant amount. The maximum amount of grant that you can receive is $50,000, but the amount you will be receiving for your specific business will be depending on the annual gross receipt for 2019 for your business. So if your annual gross receipt is somewhere in between $25,000 and $49,999, you will be receiving $5,000 per business. If it's in between $50,000 and $100,000, you will be getting $10,000 per business. And if it's from $100,000 to $500,000, you'll be receiving $50,000. So you'll notice that you are receiving 10% of your gross receipts, and I believe your gross receipts cannot be over $500,000 because that will exceed the highest amount of grant that is being provided by the government, which is $50,000. So moving on, so we're going to provide a little definition so you know if your business is qualified as a small business or a micro business. So small business is for you to be qualified as a small business, your business has to be in New York State, and it has to be registered and licensed in New York State. And you have to have 100 or less employees to be considered as a small business. Similar to small business, a smaller version of small business, micro business. Same thing, business has to be in New York State, licensed and registered, and you cannot have more. You have to have 10 or less employees to be considered as a micro business. So a small business, micro business, both are eligible for this grant. For-profit independent arts and cultural organizations are also eligible. You have to be small or medium sized. You have to be for-profit, private, independently operated. So this can be related to arts and arts, media, performance, etc. And you have to be negatively impacted by COVID-19 health and safety protocols. And you also cannot have over 100 employees. So your employee numbers have to be 100 or less, but this will not include seasonal employees. So seasonal employees will not be counted under this 100 employee count. So who qualify as for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations? These, so this include fields, but these are not limited to architecture, dance, design, film, music, theater, opera, media, literature, museum activities, visual arts, folk arts, and casting. So if your business is a for-profit in any of these fields, you are eligible for this grant. And finally, your business has to face some restrictions that were imposed by COVID-19. So, for example, like if you had a restaurant and you had to, you were restricted by the number of people allowed inside and things like that, that is one restriction by the COVID-19 pandemic, which would make you eligible for this grant. So moving on, just a little overview of the program. So as I mentioned, small business, micro businesses, and for-profit independent organizations are eligible, but you have to be operating right now. Your business cannot be like closed right now. So your business has to also be open since March 1st, 2019. So 1 year before the pandemic, you should have been in business in order for you to be eligible for this. And the businesses have to be open now, but that doesn't mean you couldn't have been closed for a while during the pandemic. That's okay, but right now, currently, it has to be in operation. Also, eligible applicants will have to show some sort of a loss of gross receipts because of the pandemic coming from 2019 to 2020. So you have to show some sort of a loss in 2020 compared to 2019. And it has to be as a result of COVID-19 pandemic or compliance with COVID-19 health and safety protocols. And yeah, and this changes might lead to modifications, interruptions, or closures. So you have to show that. Moving on, the qualifications for eligibility. So this was mentioned before, by small business and micro businesses must have 2019 or 2020 gross receipts of between 25,000 and 500,000. So here's depending on the form you filled out for your taxes. Here we have it mentioned which line you would have to look at to find out what your annual gross receipt was. So also one thing to keep in mind, this means the tax file of your business, not your individual tax file. You'll have to demonstrate a positive net profit on 2019 business return. So you must have some sort of a net profit in your 2019 tax return, and it can be $1 or greater. $1 makes you eligible, but if you have a loss, you are not eligible. And again, depending on your tax file, it will be in different lines, and we have it outlined here. So you'll also have to demonstrate at least 25% loss in annual gross receipt in 2020 compared to 2019. And this loss can be calculated based on whatever form you're using, and you can talk to your accountant and they can help you find if you had a reduction of 25% over 2019-2020 fiscal year. So you'll also have to demonstrate that your expenses, due to like COVID-19 expenses, exceeds the amount of grant that you're eligible for. So this total expenses can be found on your 2020 federal tax return that you have filed. So one thing to keep in mind also, you have to have 2019 and 2020 tax files filed already. It cannot be, you cannot apply if you will be filing for those previous taxes. You have to have them already filled out. Moving on, you'll also have to be in compliance with any applicable federal, state, and local laws, regulation, codes, and requirements, meaning that you can't have violations, fines, etc., and that would make you ineligible for this grant. You can't owe any federal, state, or local taxes prior to July 15, 2020. However, if you already have a repayment plan that has been approved, or a deferral plan, or any other way that you have an agreement with the government to pay your taxes, then you'll still be eligible. You also will not be eligible if you are qualified for any business grant assistance program under the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, or any other federal COVID-19 economic recovery or business assistance grant programs, which includes PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, which or the Forgiveness of Paycheck Protection Program. However, there are some, I know that a lot of the businesses have received PPP and ADL and also received the forgiveness. So there is a little, you know, it's not like if you just got PPP, you will not get it. It depends on how much PPP you got. So if you got 100,000 and less, you will still be eligible. And for ADL, if the ADL advance grant, you receive 10,000 or less, you will still be eligible for this. And for ADL supplemental targeted advance grant, it has to be $5,000 or less, and you'll still be eligible if you receive the SBA shuttered venue operator grant. So most small businesses will be eligible, since most small businesses did not receive over $100,000 from PPP. However, one thing to keep in mind, especially for our restaurants, is that if you got the restaurant revitalization fund, you will not be eligible for this grant. Moving on, so if you're eligible, you will have to provide evidence that your business is operating in New York State, and that you are not restricted by any state, local, or other agency mandate. And because the funding is limited, also this application is rolling, first come, first serve. We urge you to apply as soon as possible so that you have a higher chance of getting approved. So since the money is limited and there will be a high volume of requests, they're going to take into account certain things like business type, geography, and industry, because some businesses and some locations and industries have been affected by COVID more than others, and they want to keep that in mind. So priority will be given to socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, which includes minority and women-owned businesses. So you don't have to be an MWBA certificate to be qualified as a minority and women business. As long as the owner is a minority or woman, you will be eligible. You will be considered as an MWBE for this grant. Also, for service disabled, veteran-owned businesses, and businesses that are located in communities that were, hardly hit by COVID, and they will be determined by the most recent census data. So depending on where your business is and what industry your business is, you might get a little preference in terms of being approved for the grant. So we also want to highlight the ineligible businesses, so that if you think your business fall under these categories, you are not eligible. So first of all, any nonprofits, any and all sorts of nonprofits are ineligible for this grant. You have to be a for-profit. Any types of religious institutions, churches, temples, mosques, synagogues, they're ineligible. Any government-owned entities or elected officials' offices cannot apply to this grant. Businesses that are engaged in lobbying, and I mentioned before, if you have received the SBA Restaurant Revitalization Grant, you will not be eligible for this grant, even if you're a small or a micro business. If you are a landlord or a passive real estate income, your business is in passive real estate, you cannot apply for this grant. Any illegal businesses and enterprises, you must have a license and a registration from New York State government to apply for this grant. And other industry or business types as specified by ESD, you can find the list in the website for this grant program. So what documentations you guys will be required to submit in order to apply for this? First of all, definitely proof of gross receipts, loss or other economic hardship. So you will need your 2019 and 2020 business income tax returns. And if you're a corporation, it's IRS Form 1120. For partnerships, it's Form 1065 and Schedule K1. And for sole proprietors, it's 1040 and Schedule C. Again, a reminder that you have to have your 2019 and 2020 federal tax returns filed already. You cannot be planning on filing them. If you are doing so, you're not eligible. So this might not be mandatory for everyone, but Lendistream might require you to complete an IRS Form 4506C. So this is basically a verification form by IRS to sort of like see the information you provided with are accurate. And you will be needing proof of business location and current operation, and you can submit two of any of these. So it can be a current lease, utility bill, current business bank statement, current business mortgage statement, business credit card statement, professional insurance bill, payment processing statement, or New York State SD 809 or SD 100 sales tax collection documentation. You definitely don't need all of them. Any two of them will do. So yeah. Now moving on, you will also need schedule of ownership. So if your business is owned by two people and one of them is has ownership of 20% or more, you will also have to report that person, their names, addresses, social security numbers, and if the person is not a U.S. owner, their individual taxpayer identification number, the TIN number, phone numbers, emails, percentage ownership, and photo ID for verification, basically. But if someone has an ownership of less than 20%, they don't have to go through with the process. You will have to show proof of the number of employees. So this has to be the employees that are already shown in your New York State 45 document, and you'll have to report the number. You'll also have to provide proof of business organization, and you can provide any of the following: current business license, or your business certificate, or your certificate of organization, or your certificate of assumed name, DBA, doing business as, New York State certificate of authority, articles of incorporation, New York State municipality issued documents showing authorization to operate in New York State. So any of them will provide us a proof of your business organization. For funds distribution, so if you get eligible and if you get approved, they will also require you to fill out the IRS Form W-9 and bank account information so that the money can be sent to you. So this money cannot be used for anything and everything. They have a list of things you can do with this money. So eligible use of funds, this money have to be used for COVID-19 related expenses that have incurred between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021. So the 1 year in the pandemic, the expenses you had to bear due to COVID-19 is covered by this grant. So that includes payroll costs, your commercial rent or mortgage payments for your New York State-based property. It cannot be properties outside of New York State. Payment of local property or school taxes, for your small business location in New York State, your insurance costs, utility costs, costs for personal protection equipment. So if you had to buy a lot of, I'm sure you had to buy a lot of like face masks, hand sanitizer, plexiglass, gloves, etc. And those costs can be covered by this grant. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning costs, any other types of machinery or equipment that are associated with your small business. Supplies and materials necessary for compliance with COVID-19 health and safety protocols. So again, this can be the PPE materials or anything else that were required for you to operate in a safe and effective way. And other documented COVID-19 costs. So if you go to Empire State Development, you'll see a list of other documented COVID-19 costs. And yeah, so you can use your money for all of these reasons. However, and very important, you cannot use this money to repay or pay any portion of your loans that you obtained through the COVID-19 relief package. So this means PPP, this means ADOL, this means SBA shutter grant. You cannot be repaying or paying any of those grants with this money. So this is pretty much all the information we have for you about this grant. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask us any questions in the chat or in the Q&A section here right next to participants, and we'll try to answer. And thank you again so much for coming. You'll see that all the links that I've mentioned have been posted in the chat. So you can just click on them and find all this information that I mentioned. Also, one more thing, this presentation is offered in all the main languages in New York City, Korean, Chinese, Bengali, Russian. So if you think that you would be more comfortable in another language, you can click on the link and you can find all the languages that are that the state is offering this information in. And yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Tasneem, for your presentation. And definitely we have shared the information on the chat about the New York Small Business Recovery.com website and other details about the grant. One of the questions about the grant is when is the deadline and when, and I think it's important to let people know what is the deadline.
So yeah, I mentioned during the presentation, there is no deadline. This is a rolling application. However, this is very limited money. So first come, first serve sort of. This is why we recommend you apply as soon as possible. Go to your accountant if you can this week and apply for it, because as soon as they run out of the money, they're going to stop providing it to businesses.
Thank you. And at the website that I shared on the chat, you can access all the details about the grant, and also there is on the real button of the website, there is a list of languages where you can click and you can find the information, the flyer, all the guidelines, and also the most important, the form. That way you know what type of documents do you need to have in order to do the grant online, either you as a business owner or through your accountant.
Someone has their hand up. Jaffer Naqvi, do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
First of all, thank you so much, Ms. Sultana, for such a clear and informative presentation. I really appreciate it. I had a few questions, Ms. Sultana. the first question is, I know that you repeatedly stated that you have to have 2018,
No, 2019.
2019 and 2020 tax returns filed. I have already applied actually for the recovery grant program. I've uploaded all my documents. For the section about the 2020 tax returns, my accountant had filed an extension, so I uploaded the extension, the filing extension receipt. I just want for reconfirm for clarity purposes that is not acceptable. You have to have the actual 2020 tax returns.
That's what it was. That's what was mentioned to us when we were given the presentation, and it said as a note that full file federal tax returns for 2019 and 2020 are required.
Right.
Also on the line, Tasneem, we have, and we want to welcome Yadhira Talavera from Lendestry Center. That is the organization. And I would like to unmute, allow to talk. And Yadhira, will you like to introduce yourself and also help us to answer some of the questions?
Sure. I was trying to go ahead and see if I could help you guys. So my name is Yadira Talavera. I am a relationship manager with Lendestry. And so for the question that's at hand as far as your taxes, if your accountant went ahead and filed like the extension, but on the extension, there should have also been like the estimated amount of what your gross income was going to be. So you could go ahead and use your estimated amount moving forward, but your application will not be considered as complete or eligible for selection until you have your completed taxes. So that's your filed completed taxes. I hope that clarifies it.
Yes, I don't know. I don't know if I'm muted or not.
No, you're not, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I'm going to have to crack a whip on my accountant to get the 2020 returns. I really appreciate you clarifying that. I just had a couple of more questions because I don't want to
go for it.
If there are other participants that want to ask questions, I don't want to hog the session. The other question I had was, I own 3 businesses with different tax IDs, but can one individual still apply for 3 different grants for those businesses, or is it limited to an individual?
This is a grant that's based on the company. So if you want to go ahead and apply for each of the companies, that's perfectly fine. However, this is my but.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Make sure that you're eligible for each of them.
Yeah,
so
of course.
If you have, let's say, a dry cleaners, a deli, and a hair salon, if your dry cleaners and your nail salon were closed for most of the time, so there is a possibility of a loss. But your deli was open most of the pandemic, so you won't see such a loss at that point. So you want to make sure that you're eligible for each of the businesses that you are applying. Now, remember that we're looking for a 25% or more loss between 2019 and 2020.
Yes, I wrote that down. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then the 2 last questions that I had were, what happens if, I have one business, Ms. Sultana, that started in 2019, the end of 2019, December. So my gross receipts are literally $2,302. And then 2020 started, and of course did much better in 2020 than 2019, but I still did not do as well as I could have in 2020 because of COVID. Would I qualify still? I mean, there's not going to be a 25% reduction, but if you can see it's a little different in this situation.
All right, Jafar. Now, one of the requirements is that your business should have had started prior to March 1st, 2019. As you just told me, that business didn't start until the end.
Right. So that's disqualified altogether, all off the bat.
That's correct.
Okay, no problem.
Now, this is my if. if you actually, let's say that the business that you're talking about is a consulting, you were doing independent consulting in a particular business, and you have been doing consulting for the last 5 years. But in 2019, at the end of 2019, you decided to go ahead and make it a LLC. That would be the exception. You would go ahead and use the date in which you originally started as a consultant for the establishment date, but you would enter all the information that you did as an LLC. However, when you are entering the information of the taxes, because 2019 taxes, everything but 1 month was in a personal tax, you would go ahead and explain. I was an independent consultant, since 4 or 5 years ago. These are my personal taxes that reflect that consulting amount. And my company was started as an LLC on such and given date. So that would be the only exception to that rule. But your business must have started before our required date, which is March 1st, 2019.
Got it. Thank you so much for that clarification, Ms. Sultana. The last question I had written down was, in the very beginning of your wonderful presentation, you had mentioned something about having to show losses. Not that I'm very clear that 25% loss has to occur between 2020 and 2019, but you had mentioned something about losses that you have to show during COVID. So is there, and I've already uploaded my application, but will there be an additional request to show itemized receipts that you spent, that you spent money on certain things related to COVID?
So I'm going to go ahead and let Ms. Saldana answer this question.
Oh, I thought I was speaking to Ms. Saldana this whole time. I'm so sorry. No. You guys sound very similar. I'm very sorry. Ms. Talavera.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Talavera, for the.
I don't know what slides you guys were using. I'm sorry, I'm just coming in.
I can show you the slides. One second.
All right. Can you bring it over to the slide where we're talking about eligible uses?
Eligible uses?
Yeah.
1 second. It's right here.
Right there. All right. So between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021. So do you want to go ahead and answer it, Saldana?
Yeah, so this is COVID-19. No, I think he was asking if he has to show any like proof of these, like receipts and stuff.
Right. So the answer is yes. So remember, we're only going to go ahead and have you use this grant for this particular time period. So between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021. So what comes out is, let's say you went ahead and you used $5,000 for PPE. So that's COVID related, to go ahead and make sure that your employees and your customers were safe. So that's under line number 6. So you go ahead and you save that receipt, and you go ahead and say these were the expenses that occurred between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021. Because all of these receipts should go ahead and add up to the amount that's given to you at the end.
Very good.
Thank you. In my business, the situation was such that we own a rideshare car rental business. So we rent cars to Uber and Lyft drivers. And essentially our loss that we suffered greatly was that no one in New York in March and April, not no one, but the volume of people that were getting into an Uber or a Lyft or a Via was monumentally lower. And so we, as owners had to lower the rent that we were charging our customers because naturally they're not making the same amount of money. And so where we got impacted the most by COVID-19 was our insurance companies. And I'm not talking Geico or Progressive, these ones that you may be familiar with, State Farm. In the rideshare industry, there's two specific insurance companies in New York City that only insure taxis and Ubers. And so they didn't give us any break whatsoever. They didn't give us any discount. They said, "Hey, sorry, tough luck. We're not gonna give any relief." That's where the brunt of our loss was. So that's difficult to I can't provide a receipt. I can provide my insurance receipts, and you can see that that'll basically be reflected in my tax return. But that's my dilemma. If I have to, you have to show after you use the funds, you have to show the receipts, or I'm just trying to get some clarity.
You have to keep record of it. So
Okay.
I would recommend that if you know what you're going to be using it for and it's going to be pandemic related, just
Yes.
save the receipt. Just go online, go ahead and download your statement or your payment schedule, whatever it was, and go ahead and keep it in a folder on your desktop. This is for the this is for the New York recovery. So let's go ahead and just keep it that way. Like,
okay,
this is for what I'm going to use the grant for. If I
right.
receive it, then all of the information's here already. I could go ahead and just take that.
Just for further clarity, and thank you again for that. The receipt saving exercise is for after the money has been dispersed or before, because on the application there's no request for it. On the application I already submitted. Will there be a secondary round of requests for documents?
So it's not a secondary round for requests. It's a grant. We're going to go ahead and have you, I'm not sure if you were able to view the application certification. You're attesting to the fact that you're going to use it for the expenses that occurred between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021.
Correct.
That's in the application certification.
Correct.
So we're going to go ahead and hold you to that honor that you're going to go ahead and do what you say. But also, if we go ahead or somebody points a finger at you saying this person was not using the grant money correctly, then
Correct.
we're going to go ahead and have that ability to request an audit from what the receipts are.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm saying, no, you don't have to provide everything all at once. But we do want you to go ahead and have that stuff available and keep it for at least 3 years.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jafar, for all your questions. I think that they are very important for the rest of the participants. I want to be respectful of the time of Jahira. And I would like, if you can talk to us about who is Lendestry. What is the role of Lendestry in this program?
All right. So Lendestry is working in part with the Empire State Development so that we could go ahead and provide the application and the application support. So I will go ahead and do webinars such as this one to train our partners that you're currently on, and to get them the information. So we provide the customer service number so that you're able to go ahead and get that help with a different language. So for that question that was on the chat, where do I go if I have questions, in a different language? You could go ahead and call our call center, the 877-721-0097. Currently, we have extended hours. So go ahead. We're normally open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. On Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And for the next week or so, even on Sunday between 12 and 5 p.m. So for the next week and a half or so, or this weekend and next, for sure we'll have the Saturdays open. Please go ahead and apply. Make sure that, you know, if you need assistance, you either reach out to your partner or you call a call center. We want you to complete the application as quickly as possible. I have a lot of people that have started the application that haven't finished. I need those applications finished. I know that it was told this is not a first come first served grant, but we need to go ahead and make sure that the money is being distributed equitably. And if we have complete applications, it allows us to go ahead and give that priority. Okay.
Thank you. It's important to tell our audience that Lendistry hosts and manage the portal for the program, for the grants application.
That's true. That is also true.
Yeah, you are the bank, in other words.
We just hold the money and we send the money. Yes.
Exactly. And
But
when
the
you
state gave it to us
Yeah.
to hold and distribute
Exactly.
and to take care of. Yes.
Exactly. In applications, approve and rejections, you are the company who is the one who notifies the applications, right? The business owners.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any final remarks, Tasneem, for this important presentation on today's, or Jahira for today's
No,
webinar?
thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for all your wonderful questions. I'm pretty sure everyone else were also benefited by them answers, and thank you, Ms. Talavera, for answering all those questions.
You're welcome. Thank you for providing all the information to everybody. I was just meant to come in and check you guys out, see how you guys were doing. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. And before I move on to the next day.
I think we're good for now, but thanks so much for coming.
All right, thank you.